I'm Tom. I'm a freelance UI UX designer, been on Upwork for over a decade. I'm also founder of Proposally. I'm super exciting to be doing these sessions. With me today is Nem, is
Hey,
expert in all things business matters. He's also expert freelancer, expert vetted.
sure.
He knows a lot of ins and outs and strategies about Upwork, and he's also helping me build Proposally. So together, me and him, we're launching this initiative to basically help everyone who's interested to learn more about freelancing, learn more about Upwork. And today's topic is decoding the secrets of Upwork job descriptions. We all know that sometimes when we go through these job descriptions, it might be the case where you don't really understand what's written there, right? So let's say you open a job description and we can see, oh, look, someone looking for the redesign of their website and brand management services for a digital marketing services company. And all they really added is basically the same thing, right? And they put the budget of 200. Now the question is, how do you decode that? All right. So let's say you are a web designer who can redesign websites, right? But you don't really have a clue of how big the project scope is, right? When you see this, like what goes through your mind, right? It's like a multiple of things, right? One is like, hey, is it like 200 for the entire website? Is it just a placeholder? Do they gonna need more? There's gonna be a lot of different things involved here. Do I have to like charge 200? All sorts of these things. And the way I typically approach these things, where I say, okay, so let me see, is this something that I'm capable of doing? First of all, does this interest me? Does this fit into my services? Can I provide this easily? And if it does, then I try to typically learn a little bit more about the clients. I try to see where the client is from, right? Whether that's the fit for a specific market that I'm looking at, whether the client has a payment method verified, whether there's any reviews, any additional work they've been doing with other freelancers. I'm kind of like reading between the lines. I'm trying to understand, first of all, whether this is a good fit, right? Whether the client is a quality client for me to actually even consider applying to this job. And if it is, for example, I'll tell you what, like me as a web designer, I would apply to this, but I would start with the proposal saying, hey, this looks very interesting, would love to help you. Based on the job description, I did not understand too many details about it. Can we hop on a call and discuss this in detail? I would probably say nothing about the price, right? But I would try to get that person to explain or give me more details over the call or initiate a chat with me instead of me just saying, hey, I can do this for you, right? It's going to be 200. I can do this, and that. Because to me, this signals that the person really did not take too much time into putting a solid job description, right? Maybe he's a solid client, maybe he isn't. That's why there's this approach. What do you think? Anything to add, Nem?
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, just a question for you. Like, what would if you were to apply to this job, what would you put as the price when you're applying for it?
I would just say a fixed price. Typically, the way I do it, if I feel that this is something I know for sure it's gonna cost like 5,000, I would put 5,000. But for this, I would always put 200,
Mm.
right? I would never go beyond the budget because I don't know, right?
I have two ways of dealing with that because the problem is if you put way over this budget, it's very likely that the client is not even going to look at your offer just because you don't know you don't have an idea of what every other freelancer is going to put in there and what the milestone is, right? So I would either like typically put the budget that is in place there and maybe put some sort of a placeholder or something as the milestone name, right? Just with the idea to hook them into talking to me, like you just mentioned. But the other thing that I also sometimes do is I put like my hourly rate and say like one session or one workshop or whatever. So that actually makes it look even less and it catches their eye potentially. And it's actually something that I can sort of deliver on for sure, because that is actually the price and value of that. So even though I do offer like a free consultation most of the time for those jobs as well. So, but that is like, aside from that, if we were to work together, that is like an element that they can sort of get their mind around and start pricing around. So, so that's one thing that I would do. But also, I usually don't go for the posts that are not verified. That is just my personal preference, because I just found that like it is oftentimes not worth the trouble, because very rarely did I see anybody not only hire me, or but just in general hire anybody, because those people are just testing out the platform and they're obviously not even committed enough to go through the payment verification process. So it's very
Absolutely.
likely that they're not going to actually, hire anybody.
Absolutely, and that's why all of these metrics are here, right? So we can see, oh, so this guy actually signed up today. Payment method is not verified. The job description is not very descriptive, probably rough,
So
right?
I just want to interrupt real quick to add to what I was just saying about payment verification. There is one special case where I might consider it, and that is exactly when I see that it's an extremely recent client, like a day or two ago sign up. And if it's something that I'm really into and I would really like to work on that job. So in that case, I would either apply to it right away, or I would just like set it aside and take a look a day or two later to see if they got verified in the meantime, depending on like my time availability at the moment.
Would you do it for a job that has a job description like this, that's not really
No, that's what I'm saying. Like I would really need to see that somebody is serious about it. I would want to see like you mentioned earlier, like that's something that's really a good fit for me, that it's kind of services I like delivering, it's kind of things I'm really good at, and I know I can help them with that, especially if it's an hourly contract, that's even better. But even for fixed price, it's rare, but I would commit to it if I see that that person is potentially serious about it, and if I see that it would be a really good fit and it's something that I would really want to work on.
Yeah, for sure. Because you can actually, that's the reading between the lines, right? When you see a lot of these job posts, you can see when people are just rushing and they're not like trying to spend their time to write up a good job description, and they're just like, either I don't know what it is they're trying. Sometimes it can even be a scam, right? Sometimes people testing out the platform, it's hard to know. This is like where you have to evaluate, that's why there are all of these parameters, and you just have to apply a common sense sometimes, and decide whether
So
you spend your connects or not.
another interesting thing for me is like just looking at short versus long job posts, right?
Yeah.
Uh, I can't claim that there's a correlation because I haven't done any like serious analysis about it. But my gut feeling is that if you see somebody writing a short job post, they would probably be more open to shorter proposal as well. Because that's just like my theory, right? That if they didn't have the time to write it out or didn't bother writing it out, they would probably not have the time nor energy to really like sift through a bunch of information they don't care about. So
That's
in
it.
that case, I really like to make it like punchy and just like really short and to the point, and sell them on that call, right? Because the idea is that, but that does not like the thing with the call. That is something that you and I can probably do because we're like working on bigger projects and like and stuff like that. But if you're doing like content writing or like a bunch of really small pieces or like small jobs, it's very likely that it doesn't really make sense to connect with the client in such a way. They will probably not have time nor want to bother with that. So I think that offering them an option for a call is good, but you should also not force it. And in that case, I think that's just kind of like you should be trying to sell and close on that proposal right away
Absolutely. Yeah.
instead of selling them on the call.
Yeah.
But the option should still be there if they want to maybe interact with you in that way, because that could be something that other freelancers were not offering and which would maybe sort of separate you from the pack.
Yeah, 100%. And that's a very good point that you mentioned, because sometimes, like, if you kind of, even if you're doing these small jobs and you see, okay, so there is no potential, this definitely looks like a one-off, I don't want to get on a call. It's going to take 30 minutes of my time. There's going to be scheduling. I'm going to lose money on this, right? So you're really interested into, okay, I can do this. It's a quick banner, quick change, in, out, done, get paid, right?
Yeah, and if I see it's like a small job with a potential to actually become larger, I sometimes don't even offer a call. I'm like, yes, because it's literally not worth my time. So I would be like, hey, here's the thing. Here's like my typical, proposal, what I would offer for you in this scenario.
Yeah.
Hit me up in the messages if you're interested in, and we'll start working together.
Yeah.
And then maybe later down the line that's also a thing. Don't shy away from like small jobs, because they can often turn into like much larger engagements if you kind of prove yourself and your worth. So it's not like, I think that the advice here is not to like ignore smaller opportunities, because they can actually be very, very valuable to you long term.
Yeah, 100%. I remember one of my biggest clients for app design work turned out to be a scenario where someone posted the job post as a message to some other person, and they just needed something small. I replied to the client saying, hey, I'm not the person you're looking for. Your private message went to the public job board, right? And we started slow with a very small hourly rate, and over the few years, I made like more than 120,000 on that.
Yeah. I've had similar stories with clients that I made like tens of thousands of dollars with, just through starting small, maybe writing up some piece of content for them, or writing up some sort of a plan or something like that, and it would turn into like a long-term collaboration that would last for years.
Yeah. This is another very good example where you can really read between the lines, right? So like when, for example, a very good job post, a quick in and out, I would say, but there is a potential to actually have more work from these people, right? There's very, very concrete things, they kind of specifically say what it is. They need 2 banners. This is resolution. These are the text. This is call to action, 150, right? I'm like, when I'm seeing this, I'm like, hell, man, I can do this in 30 minutes, while I would say, sometimes I'm very always like, let's do these calls. But here, I would just send a proposal that says, hey, look, I can assure you, I can do this. I have done this. Let's do it. I can get it done right today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what the same sort of a vibe, right? Because it's like, sometimes you're like, yes, this is pretty clear. I can get it done. It's going to cost you roughly this much. Just let me know if you want to work with this. Like, no time to waste. We can just get it done literally in a day or two, whatever.
Yeah. And then there are these like weird projects. I'll see if I can find one. Need serious people. I don't know. Let me see. I need serious people. YouTube. Okay. Not a serious job post. Maybe not the best example. Let me see. Design product images for a web shop. That's a simple.
So do you filter your job posts when you're looking at them?
I do. I have a very specific filtering system that I follow. I typically prefer working with people from United States. I always want to have a payment method verified, because I have myself, I have lost nearly $5,000 with a client just creating new accounts on Upwork and hiring me, and then not paying me, and the payment method wasn't like verified. Payment method wasn't the thing back then. But yeah, now I definitely do that. I don't look at the number of proposals. I don't even really care the fixed price.
So
hourly rate maybe sometimes.
So here's my issue with filters. Like, I don't think that they work bad. It's just that like potential clients might not know what they're looking for, or might not set their job posts up, and you might actually filter them out by accident. So I personally prefer not to, and this is annoying, and I'm not recommending to a lot of people, but especially because like the type of work that I do is a little bit sort of, there's like 3 or 4 different things that I like working on. So it's hard for me to narrow down, because it can be a combination of it. It can be just one of them. So it is all about how people word it sometimes. And so I like to sort of manually go through these. And I usually also one thing that we didn't touch on is that entry level, intermediate, expert, which is something that is also a key to understand if this is something for you. In like Thomas's, in my case, I assume we're like going for expert more often than not. Like,
Yeah.
and maybe intermediate if it's some sort of a fit, because sometimes again, people that is also like it should not deter that should not deter you alone. Like that label should not be like be all and all, because sometimes clients don't know what they're looking for, and you can communicate to them that the budget they're looking for is maybe unreasonable, or like too low for what they're looking, and some of them might change mind and be like, oh, okay. If you provide enough argument for your case and showcase your value enough, they are sometimes open to actually upping their rates or the budget for the project, because they don't know how much it should be.
They don't know, and that's a very good point, right? And they like, and when they post, they know that they, hey, I'm gonna post a job post, and why they post it, because there's like a few things, right? They can't do it themselves, right? They need an expert to do it for them, or they want a proven system, right? Or someone that, for example, you as like a business consultant, you know that, hey, you know, this guy knows how to take me from my current situation to my desired situation, right? But beyond that, they don't really know like in which category you would fall, right? So this,
yeah, I mean, there's a lot to discuss, and like we should definitely at some point in some of the future webinars go through that with that, you know, client's perspective. What, you know, when we're hiring, what we're looking for, how does it look like
very
on
important,
our end?
very important.
Because here's the thing, because I'm a freelancer on the platform, when I'm hiring, my process is probably very different to a lot of just people that are just like pure clients on the platform, because I understand how it looks like on the other side, and I know how to look for what I need.
Yeah.
So I know what questions I need to answer, right? But in their case, they might set up wrong tags, or like wrong categories. So they might use like wrong terminology for stuff. So that's why
Yeah.
I'm saying I personally prefer not filtering by any. Well, I usually filter by some of the, you know, number of proposals, or price and price points, or intermediate, expert, and so on. But again, because oftentimes people might just put something in that is not relevant,
Yeah.
you know, I might miss out on a good opportunity because somebody put wrong budget for it, or put you know, intermediate instead of expert or whatever. So I like to go through that manual and just find the jobs that are a good fit for me, and then filter them out by those elements as you just discussed at the beginning of this.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. And like for me, I'm like I consider myself a product designer, but it's such a vast title, you know, because I can do marketing websites, I can do web apps, I can do website redesigns, I can do full products and everything. But like how these jobs are rolling into the Upwork is exactly what you just described. You will never know. Sometimes I find work under graphic design because you just saw, right? Someone like wanted a website
Yeah,
redesign.
yeah.
Like from, if you ask me under my industry, no one is gonna tell you he's a graphic designer. No one.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
But you should not expect the clients to know that, nor should
Yeah.
they. It is
No,
not
sure.
on them. Like, it is your job to help them, because they're not the experts in that area, and they're not beholden to you to know the terminology. It's your job
Yes.
to understand and maybe coach them, or just kind of teach them on that while you're working with them. So that is kind of part of your responsibility as a contractor as
Absolutely.
well.
Adds your credibility, right? You like, look, someone comes to the platform, they have a problem. You know, there's people lining up who have problems. You know, this one has a problem, that one has a problem. Everyone here has a problem, right?
Yeah.
They don't know how
So
to solve it. You do. Just
that's a question that is exactly like the question that you need to ask yourself is like when you're looking at those job proposals is what's their problem, and can I solve it, and how can I solve it? And those are like the things that you need to kind of, that's the mind frame that you have to have when you're applying for jobs.
absolutely, right? They're like, and when you approach with that type of mindset, actually everything changes. For me, every single thing changed when I like started considering myself. Actually, you know, I'm something more to these people, you know, I'm adding value. I'm not just here to like execute on like whatever they're asking, You know, and that's how you raise, well, we're going to get to this in some other time, but that's how you raise your value, you raise your rates, raise everything, right? Like becoming an expert, right?
Yeah. And in that sense, I think that like proposal is really useful in a way, because
Yes.
you need to take into account all of this, and you need to have that personal approach to each job post. But there's always going to be stuff that you would be writing over and over again. So it's a really good idea to have these templates that are like one click away for you.
Hmm.
Like I love it because it's because it allows me to actually spend more time on customizing it and
Yeah.
being personal with the approach more than before.
Absolutely, right? So you can really dig into these details, dial in to see like
So
I have a
like
framework, right? And I'm just gonna customize whatever I
I
need.
have I have like 5 or 6 different templates that I use for different services, and then I have like 4 or 5 different templates that are just like snippets of different things where I can choose from, and then I like kind of combine them together. And then on top of that, I address the specific issues or concerns if I can find them in the job post, because sometimes people don't write out anything, so no point in trying to guess where they're at.
There you
But
go.
if I see something that kind of catches my eye in the job post, I like to address it. But
Yeah.
it's much easier if I have this framework that I just kind of like put in there and then modify it accordingly. It is so much easier that way.
It is like if we go back to that first job post that we reviewed where it was just like a single line, right? Like how much of the personalization can you actually send to that kind of a thing, right? So I would say, you know, I would typically have like a short template that I know I'm using for these like weird jobs where there is a
Yeah,
lot of uncertainty and you just shoot it over and that's
yeah.
it. It's not like you can say, oh, based on what I don't understand, here's what I propose,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly, exactly. And on the other hand, there's only so many ways I can say to somebody that I've been like consulting for 10 years and
Yeah,
doing like process mapping and business like strategic planning and stuff like that. Like
sure.
there's really no point in me having 7 like writing that out every single time slightly differently, because it's the same information that I want to provide to you, and it's really easy for me to have it like
Yeah.
on hand.
Yeah, absolutely. And circling back to those job notifications, you know what I sometimes do? I know that there's, as I said, you know, my jobs as a web designer, graphic designer can fall under many different categories. What I would just do, I would like configure these filters. I would go expert and I would choose the hourly rate. I don't look at the fixed price. I don't care about the proposals. I care about the location, right? I care if the payment method is verified, and that's it. And I would say graphic designer. I would click on get notifications. I would call this graphic design web.
So
I would save it.
here's my thoughts on that. Like I agree with you, and that is how I would set it up as well, how I did set it up. But um but like I said, for me that's not the be all and all. It is more of a I want to catch some of the like perfect fit jobs, and then I set up these filters. But like I said, in my experience, I found that filtering them out doesn't work perfectly. So I still like to take some time to manually go through them when I'm on the hunt for new clients,
Yeah,
and just like go through different categories that I usually operate in,
yeah,
and just kind of see what's out there. And then I usually end up digging up a couple of that I wouldn't miss if I were to filter it out.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there is like every single industry would have a slightly different approach. It's not like don't take what we're saying here as like, you know, one size fits all. You know, you have to own your own industry. You are, you know, you better than anyone should know how graphic design jobs come into the Upwork, right? If you don't, well then bad for you. And what I suggest is go and actually look at the job post until you get sick, right? Because you have to know there's something that we cannot give to you just by talking. These are just pointers to the direction,
I
but
mean, I would really like to dive into the specific job posts and analyze the wording and see what we can glean from that. But I think that's a topic for another time, because I think that there's still a lot of stuff that can be sort of thought in that regard.
yeah,
Um, because there are certain signals that you can pick pick out from job posts aside from the obvious, right?
There are, for sure.
But yeah, I think that's a whole another discussion that's going to take us quite a bit of time, I think.
That's the plan. You know, we're quite committed to do this every single week for you guys. So like if this was interesting, you know, come join us next week. There's going to be a recording of this session.
Well, every second week. We'll see.
Every second. Exactly. It's not, everything's not set in stone. As long as there is demand, there will be a supply, you know. So
Yeah.
help us help
There's
you guys.
like there's a lot of things I can say about this, that's for sure.
100%. You know, there's just so much stuff I would love to share with you so you can save the hours, you know, save the headache, save everything. So I can just give it to you so you don't have to make those mistakes. You can do something more useful. But, you know, if there's going to be people wanting to listen to this, we're going to show up and try to do our best.